my dance, make it hurt.
Hello, and welcome to Project Passion, the podcast made to inspire you to follow your passion and to turn that into a successful business or career. My name is Johnny Thompson, and this week I am joined by the owner and founder of Affluent Co. and the Affluent Academy. It is entrepreneur, mentor, marketer, and YouTuber Jordan Platten. How is it going, my man?
Good, mate. Good. I'm really looking forward to today.
Good, awesome. Well, thank you for taking the time to come on the show. I know I really appreciate it. I know the amount of people that have asked for it appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries at all.
So I'd say this has been one of the most anticipated episodes and asked for from the other marketers and other people that have watched. But for anyone that doesn't know who you are, do you want to kind of quickly take it away, give your elevator pitch, let people know who you are?
Sweet, guys. Well, firstly, thank you for having me on today. It's nice to be able to jump on this. Now, it's been a long time coming. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Jordan Platten. I'm the owner of Affluent.co. And as Johnny very kindly said, we are a multi-service digital marketing agency and online education business as well. I came from a sales background and actually just didn't find any fulfillment in that. I was always very financially motivated and kind of realized I needed to work for myself to be fulfilled within what I wanted to achieve out of my life. And so I quit my job about 3.5 years ago, started a marketing agency focusing on Facebook ads purely locally. I documented that journey across YouTube, which opened up a number of different opportunities, such as our educational business. And yeah, the sky's been the limit since then. We're continuing to scale and continuing to build the team every week, and of course inspire as many people around the world as we can about joining digital marketing and scaling digital marketing businesses of their own.
Yeah, man. Well, look, I know you're obviously incredibly successful. You've worked your ass off to get to this point, but for me, when I know you released a video back last year, and it was I haven't been completely honest with you video, the one you I think you fell off your board and smashed your face up and then you made the video. But it was that video of you talking about that for me that actually made me pull the trigger, because I've been watching your videos from like the end of December to like the start of January, around that point. I've been watching them and I started like working on bits for an agency, and it got to the point I was working in work, I was using their Wi-Fi and all this caper, and then it got the point you put that video out, I watched that and it was so relatable because so many things that you talked about I've went through as well. It was so scarily similar, and that's what I think when I looked at it on my Instagram stories 2 days later, I quit my job and that was it. I signed one client. The day after I watched that video, I signed my second at a meeting. The day after that, I quit my job, and that was it from the start. And one of the things you talked about in that video was what you called the bloody itch, where you get sort of you have to find something new to get on at, and that's the same for me. You know, other than my very first job when I was 16, I've never spent more than a year in a job. I've been an employer's worst nightmare, to put your words on it. What for you is that bloody itch? What is that for you now?
Good question, man. I mean, I've had that forever. Like it's been something that I think I used to maybe think it was sometimes a negative thing. Like from as far as I can remember, like I always say it's also the curse of 1 year, and 1 year comes along and I want to move on to the next thing. I never had a job for longer than a year in my life, and I started working at 13 years old doing a paper round. And that's why I said I was an employee's worst nightmare, because I just wanted to jump from job to job to job, opportunity to opportunity. And it's that obsession with progression that I've had from a very young age. And it doesn't always mean necessarily I'm progressing into something which is of a higher level. Sometimes it's just having a change. And maybe that's changing a car, maybe changing a job, which is a similar pay, but you just want to have some kind of a different role. And I think it's a desire for variety within my life. And I think it's not till I got older that I kind of realized I was constantly just searching for a greater fulfillment or just more happiness within my life. So that obsession with progression turned from me renting a different property every year to then jumping through a new sales job every year when I got removed from university, to then realizing that getting more and more money on those new sales jobs wasn't fulfilling, to then thinking, okay, I'm going to start a business. But even when I've started a business, I launched my digital marketing agency, and a year later we launched the Affluent Academy, and a year later after that we launched Learn Ads. And so I still have that, and I think it's something I've very much learned to embrace and kind of realize that I studied architecture at university, and I think that says a lot about me. I'm a builder, I'm an architect at nature. And so I like building new things. I like working on new things. And I think if I ever feel stagnant in my life, my brain just doesn't allow me to sit in that position for a long time. And so for me, the Platy itch is that obsession with progression. It's the obsession for something new and that desire to never be stagnant. So it's a blessing and a curse, because sometimes you're like, geez, man, I only just got into this position and now I already want something new.
Do you think, obviously, through becoming not becoming successful, but through honing your entrepreneurial skills, do you think you've got better at dealing with that sort of instinct and impulse, and dealing with it in a better way, and a more positive way, and turning it into successes for yourself as opposed to negatives?
Yeah, definitely. It's something that I get this surge of energy, and it's something that I can then channel into something new. This year we launched Learn Ads, our new company. At the moment, we're working on expanding the team quite aggressively, and so when I get that urge, when I get that kind of that complacency, there's no complacency left within my life. I kind of get this surge of energy, as I just said, and I just want to put that into something. So yeah, I definitely found a way to channel it now.
Right. And there was something else from that video, and again, these are all things that was scary how relevant they were for me. So just some of the things like you talked about drawing Yu-Gi-Oh cards when you were a kid. When I was a kid, there was a Scooby-Doo magazine used to come out with like recipes from around the world, and I used to pay the kids on my street to come into like the little garden shed house thing we had, and I would pay them to write the recipes out, and I would take them around the doors and I would sell them to people for like 50p, 20p, and people just put them in the bin, fine rightly, but they just knew to have the 50p every week, and I was just paying these kids like 15p to write out a recipe, selling it for 50p, and that was from the offset. And then you talked about your clothing brand. You had Acquire Clothing. I had a clothing brand, still do Scottish apparel, same thing, went in there with absolutely zero knowledge on how to market, on how to sell a product. And then again, you talked about nightclubs, and I managed and part owned a promotions company here in South Wales in my first years of university, and it was like I watched it, I had to show it to my partner. I was like, this is crazy, isn't it? How similar this is. Like, this is insane. And one of the things I took from that was you can be born with an entrepreneurial mindset. You can be born with that entrepreneurial tendency. How did you actually take that into entrepreneurial actions and being a successful entrepreneur from a mindset?
Well, I think first of all that the mindset that we both share is being able to throw yourself into something and not really have to worry about what happens, and to have enough to not really have enough pride to for that to get in your way, or ego that's going to stop you from then starting something new. Because I mean, I can't even count the amount of things I've tried and failed with, and so I think having that gift of being able to throw yourself into something and not worry about failure, I think is something that's a big blessing. So that's cool to hear that you've gone through so many of the same things. I think that the most important thing that you just said is about actioning things, and that goes hand in hand with that non-fear of failing. And I think the only reason why I've managed to actually materialize something to this day, why I've managed to have any level of success, whatever success means to whoever is watching this, because it's a very open-ended thing. The only reason I've been able to have any level of success is through my continuous action of hitting my sales targets, of not taking no for an answer, or if one venture fails, moving straight on to the next venture. And it's never really allowing myself to get complacent or be in a position where I'm not doing anything to actually be moving forward. So I think action is the most important thing now. I just never allow myself to get into a lull where I'm not doing anything.
Yeah, just keep yourself busy constantly. Yeah. So one of the things to kind of round out was, and this is actually a question that someone asked me, knowing that you were coming on the podcast, was obviously you said talk about when you were in debt and you knew kind of what you had to do to change your life. There was only one way to get out of this. What was the actual turning point for you to say you're going to start an agency? And was there some sort of big catalyst event, or was it sort of a combination of the times you were just experiencing at that time in your life?
Yeah. So I mean, first of all, I got kicked out of university when I was I think I was 20 or 21 years old. And at that point I was running a nightclub business, and that started failing. And I jumped into corporate sales. And because again, as I mentioned earlier, I was financially motivated at the time. I thought that's what was going to ultimately make me happy. And the first sales job I got, I was kind of helped into that position by a friend. His name was Johnny, and I helped him into that position, and then we kind of seemed to jump into from job to job together since then. So I then moved into another role, progressed, pulled him into that one. He then moved into another one and pulled me into that one. And then eventually we both were having these conversations kind of almost every day when you speak to a friend that you're very close to and you moan about the day, you moan about your boss, you moan about your life. And one of these days, he just kind of snapped at me and he was like, Jordan, you're never going to be able to get out of this position unless you change something within your life right now. At this point, he'd already quit the role that we were both working in. He started an online business of his own in a completely different industry. But to him, he had his eyes opened up to just how many opportunities there were out there when you look online. Because it's scary how many opportunities there are online. My perception of business was that I was always looking for a big idea. I always had this perception that I'm waiting for my Uber, I'm waiting for my Airbnb. And every day I'd say to people, and I'd be the guy that you'd chat shit to with your friends, and you'd be talking to them and they'd be like, okay, yeah, cool, Jordan, whatever. But I'll be saying, oh, look, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to jump on stage, I'm going to do these things. Because in my mind, I was just waiting for a big idea. But then when I kind of got opened up to the world of online, I realized that you can literally replicate 1,000 other business models that are already out there. And just as long as you put the time in and you don't take no for an answer and you're resilient, then you can have just as much as success as anybody else who has done it before you. And so it was having that conversation with him, having that bit of a shake up, saying, look, you need to stop feeling sorry for yourself and kind of getting fed up of you having these conversations with me. And me looking around in the office and seeing people who were, with no disrespect to anyone listening to this, 3-4 times my age. I'm the youngest person in there, like by a quarter. And for me, it was like, I don't want to be in that position when I'm your age. I don't want to be stuck. And I was one of the highest earners in the office, but had probably the least fulfillment or least happiness throughout my job. And I just did not want to be in that position any longer. And I kind of realized, okay, cool. What are my options? Am I going to jump into a higher paying role in a younger company? Okay, cool. What might that do for me? Well, that's going to give me more money. But again, I'm going to still be stuck feeling like a slave to somebody else, especially in a sales industry where you're making somebody loads of cash and you're aware of the cash you're making someone else as well. Or I just take a risk, which really isn't much of a risk because I've done that many times before. I'm not going to be unemployable because I've got a good CV and I can jump into other role if I fail after that. And so I just decided to just take that risk, which really managed to pay off. I signed my first 2 clients within 2 weeks and I quit my job, very similar to how you did. And so I think that was the turning point for me. It was really kind of having a mate say, look, Jordan, I'm fed up of you having these conversations now, joint with the fact that I realized I was going to gain no fulfillment if I carried on the path that I was going.
Yeah. And of course, shout out to your friend Johnny, pick up the Johnny's, commission you do that because you've now went on, you've created the Affluent Co, became extremely successful in what you do. And I think one of the things a lot of people within the Affluent Academy think is like, a lot of people don't actually really know that much about your agency. Like, one of the things that I was always thinking is like, do you have an office or is it completely freelance?
So we started off completely freelance. I was one of them agencies at the start, and it's ironic because I don't normally advise people to do the same thing that we did. So I started off, and my first ever clients, the contract was, they were signed to me. It was like, you are working with Jordan Platten. I didn't even have a limited company set up until my first client. And so I actually took my first payment into my personal bank account, had to transfer into my business. I was a freelancer without a website for the first 6 to actually probably almost 12 months of our agency. I was scaled to 6-figure point as a freelancer, just operating as myself. Now, the reason why that worked is because I had a YouTube channel and because someone could still see some kind of online presence from me. So if I reached out to someone, they Googled my name, at least they could see something, and I was talking about marketing. And so I was who I was saying I was. It was at the point of about 12 months in when we had worked with a lot of contractors, had a few problems with it, that I realized that the freelance model wasn't really going to work if I wanted to scale up a lot further. And so then we took on Joe, who actually happened to be one of our other members of the Affluent Academy. We went in partnership together, gave up a percentage of the company. And since then, we've just scaled rapidly as an agency, rebranded from Jordan Platten to the Affluent Agency. We don't have any physical office. We keep super lean. It's me, Joe, and Tom. Tom's our account manager. He's managing about 9 ad accounts himself. Joe managed a whole heap of others. And we've onboarded 8 new clients in the last 4 weeks alone. And so we've used the original inbound sales systems that we had built out, such as our personal brand, and we just have utilized them for our new rebranded marketing agency, the Affluent Agency. We're literally hiring a graphic designer today who's coming onto the team as well. So we can now be introducing graphical elements to our ads and improving all of our creatives and things as well. So we're super, super lean, and we were always very private about our agency when we were freelance, because we had a lot of people who it's really weird. Like when you're on the come up, when you're growing, even more so than when people already perceive you as being there, there's a lot of jealousy around in various industries. And we used to have people messaging our clients, like reaching out saying, hey, are you working with Jordan Platten? Hey, are you doing this? Because they're doing like their research and they're checking out to see you are who you say you are. And in doing that, they don't realize how ridiculous they make you look, because you're breaching all these confidentiality agreements, you're breaching trust. And we lost so many clients in our early stages because we made the mistakes of broadcasting this on our YouTube. Nowadays, you can go onto our website and you can see a client list on our recent blogs. Like, we literally publish how many clients we sign up all the time, and we put the names out there because we are almost not too big to be touched or to be damaged, but our brand and our reputation is a lot bigger than it was back in the day. So our customers necessarily don't then get annoyed with us because they're very aware of who we are and what we do before they work with us. They know that we have this brand, so it's almost expected of them.
Yeah. Do you think it's worth going that way in terms of being able to leverage your brand? So like you're talking about here, if someone was to try and do it anyway, you've already managed excess of millions in ad accounts. And do you feel like that gives you a lot more leverage in them situations where someone can't try and undercut you in the market?
Do you mean as in like from the previous, as in leverage, as in the clients that we've got previously, or do you mean as in having the brand that we've got?
Just leveraging your brand in general. So like the name Jordan Platten and the Affluent Academy, leveraging that and the success of it.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt that the personal brand that we have helps us sign new clients. But what I think it does more over than any other agency is it just eliminates the need for us to do outbound sales. We simply do not have to outbound. So there's 1,000 agencies out there that do not have any personal brand attached to them. They don't have a big company brand attached to them, who are still incredibly successful. And not having a personal brand isn't going to hinder you at all. You can build a very successful agency. The only difference between me and someone who doesn't have one is that I don't have to outbound and another agency will. So it's just an inbound sales mechanism for us that makes our life a lot easier, but it isn't necessarily the be all and end all as to whether we're successful or not.
And do you actually work within a specific niche? Because I know a lot of people will try and niche down, or do you more just specialize in a certain aspect of market, which allows you to stay more open niched?
Yeah, we only advertise ourselves to e-commerce businesses. We started off incredibly local. I mean, it was a nightmare, to be honest. I only cared about making money when I first started with the agency. And so I signed up a restaurant, I had a dentist, I had a gym, I had a bathroom showroom, which was a physical brick and mortar bathroom showroom and no online store. And that was an absolute nightmare. We signed up, and we had a rug store, like a furniture in a family, again, no e-commerce element. And so we were just learning new industries all the time. It was an absolute mess. When we started getting case studies, we moved on to e-commerce. We did trial out info products. We have a couple of info product clients. But the thing we learned about info products is that the ads is like the icing on the cake. It's like 10% of the success of the business. We thought we could replicate what we know from the Affluent Academy and the success we've had there on other e-commerce businesses. But then we realized that actually it's all about the brand. It's all about the webinar. It's all about the rest of the funnel and all of that. So we moved away from that. Nowadays, we just focus on e-com. But actually, that being said, we signed up a law firm last week, so that kind of counters that. But we don't add. We're like majority e-commerce. That's kind of our bread and butter.
So another thing, kind of on that as well, and on the turning point of scale, what is the first step for someone? How does someone first realize, right, okay, now is the time where I need to position for scale? And then secondly, how do they take that first step? What should the first step be to go start scaling your agency up?
Cool. So with some context, what kind of position are we saying? Are we saying they've got a couple of clients under the belt and it's just a one-man band still, or?
Well, that's the question. When should someone, is there a way to know, or is it just maybe when you can't do it yourself and you then need to start outsourcing? Is there a sort of benchmark for it?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's always been when you feel pain. That's always my ethos with hiring. It's like when you feel pain, that's when you should hire. Like right now, we feel pain because nobody in the team apart from me is very good at graphic design, and everyone will very openly admit that. I don't have the time to do graphic design, and so we're feeling that pain. We need somebody, so we're hiring a graphic designer. We hired Tom, our account manager, when Joe could no longer manage all the ad accounts himself. So I think that's one of the big mistakes actually agencies make, is they think they need to scale too soon. So they start outsourcing things right at the start when they're just being lazy. So you should always be at your maximum capacity yourself before you look to expand, because you're going to cut into your profits every single time you do that. And if you lose one or two of your clients, that might be all of the profit that you've got. And then all of a sudden you've got no business. So my advice to any marketing agency owner is, unless you've got two choices really. You start off by yourself and you fulfill all the services and you sell. Once you get to probably I reckon probably 6 to 8 clients, you won't be able to fulfill all those services yourself and still be able to sell. At that point, you're going to want to hire an account manager, or you're going to want to hire a salesperson. Either or, okay? You can go one way or the other, depending on which skill you enjoy the most. The second option you have is starting off with a business partner from day one. Give them 50% of the business, and you do sales, and they do ads, or they do ads and you do sales, or if you're not ads, it's just whatever your service delivery is. So ultimately, you're going to end up doing what you enjoy the most, but you never should hire out unless you're, if you're a one-man band, unless you're actually feeling that pain yourself, because you're just going to eat into too much profit.
And I assume that's just obviously different for every person. Some people are more creatively minded. Graphic design is not an issue for them, but they might need to outsource actually facilitating the fulfillment of the ad accounts and vice versa.
Yeah, 100%. It's different for every single person. There's no one size fits all in any of these kind of business models. Because I mean, your service could be Facebook ads, someone else's service could be web design. There's so many different elements that come involved.
So we've already mentioned the other arm of your entrepreneurial skill set and repertoire, the Affluent Academy, which is where every marketer that's been on the podcast so far has came from. And obviously incredibly successful, CPD certified. So firstly, congratulations on that there.
Thank you.
But you've now recently branched out again. You've went into learnads.io. Do you want to kind of explain, like, what is that there then now you're kind of branching off into?
Yeah, of course. Well, learnads.io is what we see as the top of our funnel. I'm super transparent with the way everything works with regards to like how we make our money and why we do what we do, right? So Learn Ads was born from the realization that there's a big gap in the market, or there's a big area of people when we're reaching out to business owners who actually want to advertise themselves. Okay, so as a marketing agency, let's say we reach out to 10 business owners. Maybe 3 of those business owners don't give a shit about marketing, and they can't be bothered, so they don't do anything. 3 of them may want a marketing agency, and they're waiting for the right marketing agency to come along and fulfill their services for them. So that's great. They're a client for the marketing agency. And the rest of them may be people who actually think, oh, do you know what? I don't actually need to pay a marketing agency. I've got the time, and I don't have the knowledge to actually do this myself. Because one of the reasons that people come to marketing agencies is they don't have the time to do it themselves or the desire to do it themselves. But there is a section of the market that do have the desire to do it themselves, do have the time to do it themselves because their business is set out that way. They just don't have the knowledge. So Learn Ads is purely an educational based platform which teaches business owners how to advertise for themselves on Facebook. So we're kind of filling that gap in the market. But what we're also doing is using that as our top of a funnel for the rest of the 2 companies, whereas some business owners who go through there will then realize, okay, shit, Facebook ads are a little bit more complicated than I thought. And then they'll filter themselves down into the academy and we upsell them onto our done for you services. Or if they don't have the right budget, we filter them into our Affluent Academy award winners, and we will take a commission from that as well. So it's acting as like a big lead generation tool right now, as well as a new as a new revenue source.
Yeah. And so for anyone that's in the Affluent Academy right now, is it different material you're teaching in Learn Ads? Is this for other people maybe in the Affluent Academy to go and sign up for Learn Ads as well, or are these 2 completely separate things, and Learn Ads is just for business owners to promote their own business?
Yeah, no, there's no different material. It's simply the messaging that's changed. So in the Academy is teaching agency owners how to market for other people. The Learn Ads is teaching business owners how to market for themselves. So the content's the same, the messaging and the way we deliver it is just different. That's why when we actually launched it, we gave everybody in the Academy free access, just for peace of mind that there wasn't any different material in there. There are a few UI changes that Facebook like to keep us on their toes. They've changed a few UI changes, but that's yet to be updated in the Academy, which will be done over the next couple of months anyway. But as far as the strategies and everything is concerned, it's all exactly the same. It's just the messaging. So there's no need really. If you're in the Academy, there's absolutely no need to join Learn Ads.
This might be a bit of a trigger question, actually. Do you, from your own opinion, think that the SMMA space is too full, or is it a case of there's not enough quality and sustenance within the numbers?
I don't think it's too full, no. And I think it's an interesting question. I think that we have to compare ourselves to another industry that's been around longer than us, like web design, for example. Another service-based business, but web design agencies still launch every single year and have a lot of success, right? So the web design agencies have been around since the birth of the internet, as soon as people were able to make websites. And they still can have a lot of success through launching just by making sure their branding is right, making sure that they're hitting the right audiences, maybe they have a different subsection. Now, the thing that people overlook with digital marketing when they think that this is an industry that could potentially get saturated is the fact that the whole world is awake now to online e-commerce, especially considering what's just happened in the last year or so, right? People are shitting themselves, people are realizing they need some kind of online business model. All of these brick and mortar businesses that didn't have some kind of online model are trying to scramble for online options. I know personally know so many brick and mortar businesses who are now launching new online divisions of their companies, like countless amounts. And so whilst new marketing agencies are starting up, there is a huge number, a colossal number, way more than the amount of marketing agencies of companies that are starting online. And so the target audience and the potential customers is increasing exponentially, way beyond what marketing agencies are. And also, I'm not afraid to say that there's only a tiny percent of the people that start a digital marketing agency are successful. And is that because the industry doesn't work? Absolutely not. It's because people can't be asked. People were too lazy. People will start, they get a couple of rejections, a couple of cold calls. I couldn't count the amount of times I get a message from someone saying, hey, Jordan, like I tried SMA, I watched a couple of your videos and it didn't work. I'm like, okay, cool, man. How many people did you reach out to? And like 20 people. I'm like, even 100 or 200 people. It's like, you're wasting, like, I'm not even like, what are you even doing? Like you cannot expect to have success like that. And it does really frustrate me when I see other people who are like competitors of ours or whatever in any kind of educational space that makes it seem that success is easy, because it simply isn't. And you do need resilience and you do need to put the work in. But to answer your question in a roundabout way, no, digital marketing is not saturated, because at the end of the day, there will be thousands of people who will try and start agencies, but again, thousands of people will fail because they can't be asked to put in the work.
Perfect answer. That's exactly the response I assumed that you were going to give anyway. But there's never, obviously drop shipping was the thing. It was the online digital nomad thing that everyone was doing, and it kind of had its drop off and it's kind of faded away. But what we found was a lot of people that were in the drop shipping space were positioned well enough that they could transition to being digital marketers and having agencies. Do you see a time where this might drop off, like drop shipping, or is it a completely different ball game we're playing here, where this is the long run and there might be different aspects that change, but social media marketing as a whole is here for the long run?
I think that SMMA as we know it will drop off the face of the earth. I think SMMA as SMMA as a term, as a business opportunity will drop off. I think that naturally people will just realize, the real people who are professional in this industry will realize that this isn't some Tai Lopez based business model which can be grouped together with things like drop shipping and whatever. We're talking about a digital marketing agency. We're talking about a modern digital agency, and that will always be around. Like no matter what the service is, whether it's Facebook, whether they implode, whether it's TikTok ads, whether it's Snapchat, whether it's voice search on Google, there will always be room for a digital marketing agency. And so I think that SMMA, as this popular craze that a lot of young kids are searching for and kind of seeing on all the YouTube videos and whatever, I think that will drop off. But I think digital marketing agencies will always be around.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing, is like, I think a lot of people, especially clients or prospective clients, is part of their dubiousness is kind of they don't see it as a real sustainable asset to their business. They see it more as a trend and a fad that's going to fade out. Do you think that there's any particular way to word a response to people and to clients of how this actually is here for the long run and why it's so important to them and beneficial?
Well, I think we just simply need to bring it back to what it is we're actually doing. Okay. I think if a business owner said that to me, okay, I say, no worries. Okay. So what are you spending your money on at the moment? Where are you getting your customers from? We're spending X amount on print media, or we're spending X amount on this, or we're doing this on this, that, and the other. Okay. So it's like, so I could get you X amount of customers, or I could reach you X amount of people. We can do a very simple search on Facebook. We can look at £5 spend on a random audience, and we can see roughly how many people we're going to reach. Okay. You could pretty much guarantee you're spending £1,000, you're going to reach a couple of 100,000 people at a minimum. And so I challenge any business owner to come to me and say that they're getting more or more effective cost per reaching 1,000 people on any other platform than social media, okay, regardless of whether it's Facebook, Google, or whatever that may be. So I think we bring it back to what it is. It's not about social media marketing or digital marketing as being a fad. It's about, we're literally putting you in front of thousands of people for thousands of pounds less than what you're paying at the moment. And that's all a business owner needs to know that it's a worthy service for them. I think my first ever client, in fact, I think it was the restaurant client, and they had literally just spent £800 on one of these big T-boards. It's like a V which goes on a roundabout. Spent £800, yeah, and it got vandalized the month after they put it up. And so it's completely untargeted. Cost £800. They wasted the money after a month, and it's just everybody in the city seeing it. And I was like, within £800, I literally could have got you to reach every single person in the city 2 times over. And that for them was the instant sell. It's like, okay, shit, like what are we doing with our time? And I think some business owners really need to hear that.
Yeah, exactly. And kind of going on that vein, actually, is there any advice? Obviously, 2021 is going to be a bit of a weird year, same as 2020 was a weird year. Is there anything that's changed, and any advice you could give for any current entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs in sort of how to approach the industry of being self-employed and being a business owner?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, I mean, even if we take this, first of all, like with digital marketers, I mean, it's obviously very important, stating the obvious, that we need to leverage what has just happened recently, and using similar wording that I've used today, talking about the fact that people have realized they need some kind of online model, pushing on the pain point that if anything like this ever happened again, you wouldn't want to be in a position where you're not generating revenue. But away from that and just looking at entrepreneurship as a whole, I think that a lot of people this year would have done a lot of self-finding. And I think one thing that I learned, which was really difficult when I first started, was I was always very uncomfortable in my own company. I always found it very difficult to be on my own and to be like spending extended periods of time just not with other people. It was incredibly social. And when I first moved out from living with a friend and I was living by myself, working on my business, it was really tough because I then had no one to be venting with. I had no one to kind of bounce back ideas with. And it's just because there's a lot of silence. And I think the one major thing that's happened this year is a lot of people have been forced into that position that they didn't necessarily want to be in, for better or for worse. But it's actually made a lot of people comfortable in their own blood and in their own company. Now that is a massive asset to anybody who wants to get into business, because that's the first step to be able to keep yourself motivated and to be able to get working on something new. And so I think that for anybody from last year, use that as who wasn't confident in themselves, use that as something that they can leverage going forward. It's something that they've really benefited from all of this. Because at the end of the day, like there are going to be a lot of people who are starting online businesses now. I think there are going to be a lot of more people who are jumping into entrepreneurship. I think a lot of people realize they don't want to be staying in their job. Some people, especially in the UK, I don't know if in Ireland you had furlough. People have been getting used to having their wages paid to them still while sitting on their ass at home. And so there's not a lot of excuse now to not be doing something new because we've had so much time on our hands. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see how many new I'd love to see some stats on how many new companies have established over the last year or so. I'd be surprised if it wasn't so much further ahead than previous years.
Yeah. And I mean, even on the flip of that, though, the amount of businesses we've seen go under, never mind even all the small businesses, the local businesses that wouldn't have been able to sustain through this. Like you've got like the Arcadia Group who fell not that long ago. That's the name of it, isn't it? Arcadia Group. Yeah, they fell not that long ago. They've all been bought out. Pretty much all of the brands they own have been bought now, I think. And do you think there's going to be more uptake or more downtake in terms of businesses?
I think that as terrible as it is, and I would never wish those, because it pains me to see so many businesses failing. But I think within that is so much room for growth and so much room for new opportunity, because it's forcing industries which have been stagnant for tens and tens of years to suddenly innovate. Like Arcadia Group are now being bought, like subsections of them being bought by Boohoo.com, who have proven that they can generate incredible amounts of revenue without the overheads of having brick and mortar stores. And so it's going to be amazing to see how they innovate that business and what they change about it. And there's so many lessons to be taken from that. And I think that in all of the businesses that have shut down as an unfortunate result of the pandemic, I think there are lessons to be taken from those industries and areas where people can innovate, because you can learn from all of the companies that have made extra revenue during this time as well. And so I think that opens up for a lot of opportunity and a lot of business models that maybe didn't exist 12 months ago that people can now replicate. There are so many, you only have to look in the news for how many, on the positive side, how many success stories there have been. Like there was a massive thing about food cart trucks and things like that, and all those business models, just because someone's done it and it's been in the news this year, all of them are now replicable business models that anybody else can take and try and take on their own spin. Just because, like, as I said at the start of this, you don't need to invent the next Uber, Airbnb. You can just take something that someone's already done and just put your own spin on it. And so I think on a positive note, there are so many new opportunities that have come from all of this in the birth of the businesses that have failed.
Yeah, yeah. And I think a lot more people as well are seeing the the sort of line of you're only one bad day away from being poor kind of is real when something like this happens, and that you need to have another revenue stream, or at least a stronger source of revenue. With that, do you invest in anything else? Is there any other aspects or business ventures you have that you've kind of branched out into? I know a while ago you had pictures on your Instagram about something about racing. You had like a race car or something with pictures of it. Is there anything you've looked at?
Yeah, I mean, we have, obviously we have our three businesses, but we have about five revenue streams. YouTube, obviously, ad revenue is another revenue stream for us. We have sponsorships and we do corporate deals as well. We recently signed an $80,000 deal with a big international car brand to do a little bit of training for their sales team, which is cool. It's like a 5 video in-house training course. Which is amazing. And that opportunity came to us inbound. So we've got lots of streams. We have some people with sponsor content. And so we're constantly looking on ways to diversify and to build partnerships with other companies. But away from that, we are building a wealth portfolio. Recently bought a new house, literally, and this is the first time this is exclusive. It's on this podcast because no one knows about this. So I'm actually going to be moving property, moving into a new house. And so that's going to be at the end of this, well, it's actually going to be at the end of this month, so which is exciting, and that'll be on my channel, no doubt. So I bought a new property. So I'm very conscious about building my wealth portfolio at the moment. I've got a financial advisor I took on last year. We're making sure we're putting all of the money we can into ISAs. We're investing into stocks and shares. I've got a bit of money into cryptocurrency. And I think that one thing that's always been very important to me is to kind of spread myself as wide as I can in many different areas. So if something went to shit, if some regulation came in and meant we can't run the Affluent Academy anymore, which is why we got certification to prevent that ever happening if the industry something happened. But let's say worst case scenario, something happened. We've got 5 other revenue streams that are in place that are already making us over 10K a month profit that we can fall back on, and our lifestyle will never have to be sacrificed because of that. So I think that's really important. Is once you have one thing set up, is try and work out ways that you can build other streams from that. With an agency, it's like referrals. You can build a referral scheme. You can diversify your service delivery. You can build partnerships with other businesses and get inbound leads from them. You don't just need to rely on outbound sales. You can build 5 different agencies that you've worked with, and you can get inbound referrals from them. So if one partnership goes down, you've got another 4 partnerships, and so on and so forth. I think that's really important for anyone who's in business.
So this is kind of on that. It's actually quite a simple question, to be fair. So obviously, people in marketing industry, especially what we do, typically get to the point where you have excess money to an extent where you're looking to make these investments. But for a very simple question, how does someone start doing this? How does someone that's came up never having money in their life, and then suddenly, they've built their agency and they have money, and then kind of go, right, but how do I now sustain myself by putting money into investments? How did you start even doing that?
Through seeking advice, to be honest. I think that the worst thing you can do is just try and limit yourself, just try and just gamble with your own money. I think, again, the financial advisors, again, we only did that last year. It's the first time we actually considered doing that. I've always been a bit of a cash hoarder in the business, which isn't really great for taxes, because we just keep a big lump sum in the business and it's just doing absolutely nothing for me, just dying with inflation. And so I kind of had this realization in the middle of last year, I really need to do something with this. And so I seek that advice. I spoke to somebody else who I knew was already doing incredibly well, much better than I am. And I asked them for their financial advice, and they gave me a referral. And so I think that was one thing that we did. But I think with regards to diversifying your revenue streams, I think that's something only really you can do yourself based on the opportunities that are in front of you. I think that you have to get started to be presented with new opportunities. I didn't have 90% of the revenue that we're generating, or not 90% of the revenue, over 50% of the revenue we're generating now as a whole, as a group of companies. I never knew that I would even have that opportunity presented to me before I started my agency. And so it's just getting started with something, and then other opportunities open themselves to you. Like, you've started your agency and you've got this podcast, and then naturally, as the podcast gets bigger, you'll have sponsorships, you'll have guests that you speak to, and one day you'll speak to a guest who offers you an opportunity because he thinks you're the right person for something else he's working on. And it's just that tumble effect of just these opportunities that come to you once you get started with something.
Exactly. Well, look, I know obviously you're a busy man, Jordan. You got a lot to get on with today as well. So do you have any final words for anyone listening or watching?
No, all good. I mean, obviously, if anyone is watching this, and if this is the first bit of content you've seen from me, head over to my channel or follow me on Instagram or on YouTube. It's just Jordan Platten. My mission is to put a more way for free than other people have you pay for. So yeah, if you want any advice on digital marketing or anything, don't hesitate to reach out to me or my team.
Yeah, and I can vouch for that. I know every other marketer that's been on the podcast has mentioned it and vouched for it as well. It is by and far the most content and value you will get for free out of anyone in the guru marketer space. It is the most value you're going to get. But yeah, Jordan's handle for Instagram has already been on screen. Links, as always, guys, down in the description. Go check him out. Go check out the YouTube videos. It will inspire the shit out of you. So go check it out and get on it. But yeah, that's it, guys. Download, hit like, and subscribe, notifications, and we're back again next week. And Jordan, thank you for coming on, man. I do appreciate it.
Thank you so much, dude. I've enjoyed it. See you later, guys.
No problem. Have a good day, guys.
Hello guys, how you doing? It's me, Jack, mate. You've just finished watching probably one of the best videos on YouTube. So why not take a moment to consider subscribing? And if you haven't already, hit the like button and turn the notification bell on. Apparently it helps. I don't know how. It was a good one though, wasn't it?